Why is California on fire, and what does it mean for the future? Here's a graph with the amount of wildfires that happen in California, and here's a graph with the amount of acres burned every year in California. Both of these go from 1950 to 2022, and as you can see, the recent wildfires in California are only getting more frequent and each one more dangerous and causing more damage. If you've been watching the news, you've probably heard about the recent LA fires, and both sides of politics are yelling at each other at who's to blame for this mess. And while whose fault is unclear, and look, honestly, I don't really care about politics, what's objective is, at the time of making this script, the fires have burned 36,000 acres, caused more than 180,000 citizens to be evacuated, and caused $135 billion of damage. And unfortunately, at least caused 11 deaths. What's the cause of all these fires? Number 1, drought. LA has not had much rain since last spring. Through summer and fall, they've had less than 1 millimeter of rain. Usually in fall months, they're supposed to have at least 3 or 4 inches. Why does it rain less in California? Because of climate change. What used to be a more consistent amount of rain has turned into years where they have surpluses of rain, and other years where it's completely bone dry, like recently. On top of that, the summer of 2024 was the hottest summer LA has ever had on record. It caused more evaporation, and without the usual moisture, the area was dried out and ready to be fuel to a fire. Santa Ana. Santa Ana winds are strong and dry winds that are currently happening in Southern California. Now these winds are commonplace, but this time around the winds are extremely strong. They're blowing at 100 miles per hour, and are a large reason why the wildfires are able to spread so quickly and cause so much damage. It's also why firefighters are having so many issues trying to contain these wildfires. Number 3, human activities. For the longest time, if you were a house builder and needed to build new properties, you just build outwards from LA. The problem is, a lot of where the land that these properties were built on were also considered fire prone. But hey, people need houses and there was money to be made, so you know. And then when it came time to build the houses, these builders could have invested in more fire resistant practices to safeguard the houses from, I don't know, an extremely catastrophic fire in an already high risk area for fires. Or they could not do that and save on costs. You could probably imagine what they did. Now, it's not like these house builders are evil people, because at the end of the day, them doing this also makes the houses more affordable for people like you and me to buy them. But regardless, as you can imagine, because most house builders went with the second option, it caused these fires to be way more catastrophic. Okay, so now that you know why these fires are happening, what's the aftermath? Over the last 4 days, at least 10,000 businesses and houses have been burnt to the ground. Most of these were uninsured or on the state fair insurance plan. In the news, there's a lot of attention put on insurance companies pulling out of California, and especially with the Luigi CEO headshot news.
I'm Luigi, number 1.
Pretty much everyone hates insurance companies right now. But take this into account. California passed a bill called Proposition 103. Basically, California said to insurance companies, you can only raise your premiums by this X amount. And by law, these companies were not allowed to raise their premiums any more than that level. But like I said in the last section, a lot of houses are also knowingly built on high-risk wildfire zones and are not built with fire resistance in mind. But at the same time, the government was telling insurance companies, you cannot charge homeowners extra for insurance, even though they're way more likely to lose their house to a fire. So insurance companies did what made sense for their companies and stopped offering protection to these houses. And to be honest, I don't know if you can blame them. Insuring these houses would have literally caused them to bankrupt themselves. But as a result, these poor homeowners were caught in the middle and now had no private insurance company willing to insure them. Many people just straight up accepted that they would not be able to insure their homes, but others applied to the California Fair Insurance Program. The California Fair Plan was originally set up as a last resort insurance for Californians who could not get insurance from any other company. But then more houses were built in high-risk areas, rainfall became more variable, the temperature got hotter, the ground got drier, and eventually no private insurance company was willing to offer Southern Californians in high-risk areas with insurance. So as a result, you had large swaths of Californians applying to the FAIR program, and it absolutely ballooned in size. And now, with one of the worst wildfires in Californian history and early estimations putting damage in the tens of billions, it begs the question, is California Fair gonna go bankrupt? And more importantly, are people gonna still be insured? Yes. No. Okay, I don't know. At least for the first question. The wildfire has torn through some of the most high-value properties in California. And according to a Wells Fargo estimate, they think that anywhere from 60 billion to 130 billion damages have already been done. Meanwhile, the fair program was set to have 200 million in surplus and another 2.5 in reinsurance. Okay, so obviously 130 billion in damages is a way bigger number than 2.7 billion. But according to experts, this doesn't actually mean fair is going to go bankrupt. There's a thing called a reinsurance company, which is basically the insurance to the insurance company. In the California Fair Plan's case, it means even if or when the fair program runs out of money, the damage will then be passed on to other private insurance companies within California, who are then allowed to pass the cost down to their customers, which does probably mean that Californians are going to end up footing the bill. But at least, most likely, the cost of the people under the fair program will be covered. But this does mean that in the future, insurance companies and even reinsurance companies are way less likely to work with Californians. Now, I made this episode mainly to talk about the economics, but there's obviously the other side of this, which is human displacement and loss. At least 11 people have died. And I literally live across the country, but there's a bunch of on-the-ground interviews which give an insight of the situation. It's obviously terrible. If you want to see that side of the story, I would check this video out from Channel 5. It does a lot of on-the-ground interviews. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Obviously not as much as a funny video because this is a recent situation, but yeah, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.